Ian Black, he's with the London School of Economics and Political Science. He's a visiting senior fellow at their Middle East Center. He talked about the international reaction to Trump's action.
It's been looked on in absolute horror and condemnation that in one telephone call, President Trump has undermined years of involvement in Syria. It's true, of course, that the Western response, the European response and American response to the long-standing crisis in Syria has not been a very edifying story. But this is a new low. And I think that in terms of the adversaries of America and the West, they are simply delighted by what has come to pass in the last few days. It has strengthened the position of President Assad in Damascus, who has been supported from the beginning of the Syrian war in 2011, in particular by Russia and Iran. And they have seen the amazing spectacle of President Trump promoting their goals for basically the return of Assad's control over most, if not all, of his country, after 500,000 people have been killed and millions of people have been made homeless. Of course, part of the story is that 3.5 million of those Syrians are in Turkey, which is a big part of the motivation of President Erdogan in mounting this offensive.
So how does this set the table for Pence and Pompeo? Doesn't that make it even more difficult for them when the U.S. president himself is saying these guys are no angels?
Absolutely. I mean, he appears to be, President Trump appears to be expressing support for the position adopted by President Erdogan. Quite apart from the wider implications of that, it will make it even more difficult for the Vice President and the Secretary of State to get anything out of Erdogan when they see him tomorrow. He's been very determined. He's been speaking earlier today, and insisting that the offensive will continue until the Kurds disarm. Now, maybe there will be a role for some kind of American mediation between the Turks and the Kurds, but the Kurds could be forgiven for not trusting the credibility of the Americans when President Trump has, as they see it, and many people agree with them, has simply betrayed them after the role that they played, the heroic and leading role in defeating ISIS, Daesh, Islamic State in recent years. So it's not looking good for American leverage over this very volatile situation.
But one of the things he mentioned was that there will be troops deployed to Saudi Arabia, but he said Riyadh is going to pay for it, almost sounding as though it's kind of a mercenary approach to military might from the United States. What did you read into that, and how will that be received in Europe?
Well, I think, again, with dismay. Trump appears to be driven by his approach of America first, isolationism, and transactions that bring money into the United States, whether it's the Saudis or others paying for their defense, or indeed buying billions of dollars worth of US weapons. It doesn't look like an enlightened foreign policy based on traditional American values. It looks like something much more transactional and indeed rather ugly that serves the interests of America's enemies across the world.